happy to be here in Russia again. I've been here about 10 times. My wife is Russian and I'm from St. Petersburg, so I have plenty of opportunities and reasons to visit St. Petersburg. So I got the question the first day I was here, so what is MariaDB? So we are basically a fork of MySQL by the original people who developed MySQL, and we are a total replacement up to MySQL 5.7. We have much more plugin store features, everything else, and we have open source development. There's lots of slides. The slides will be available at the conference webpage after the conference, so you can look at that for reference. So a little bit about my personal life. So that's me when I was a little bit younger in '89, and that's me just a couple of days old. And me is, of course, who gave the name to MySQL. So, yeah. So one of the big benefits of being a leader of open source project, you get to travel a lot. And here we are in Madagascar in '99, 10 years later. I've been working from home since 1982, and I think that's one of the best benefits of the internet. You can have a virtual company, hire the best people everywhere, but still don't have to move. And that's me with 2 of our old dogs. We have now about 50 animals at home. I also have a son, Max, who I gave the name to MaxDB, and which was a version of SAPDB, and he also gave the name to MaxScale. And those who doesn't know about Finland, almost everyone has a country house where we go for the summer and midsummer, and most of the houses doesn't have electricity. So this is where I go in the summer when I need to charge my batteries. Just like being somewhere, no internet, no electricity, you can really get some peace. Lately we got mobile network there, so it's not as peaceful as before, but still. We spent lots of time in MySQL before we took investors. I started with MySQL, or the original MySQL, in 1981. And MySQL was released in '96, and we took investors 5 years later. But it's a learning experience, and I think this picture kind of shows that. It's good, but sometimes you regret what you just did. So those who know the history of MySQL, we did come into some strange company, and people wondered what will happen with MySQL. I know that some people are scared. It's end of open source, one open source database. But fortunately, we have somebody who can take over. So that's Maria. And one of the biggest problem with, or task with MariaDB is take over success. Everybody knows MySQL, and competing with a brand that known is really, really hard. But we are quite confident we can do that. So here we are in Dubai. That's a real sea lion, and that's Maria. And this was 2 years ago. And we had a hard time convincing Maria that we can't take the sea lion back home. It doesn't work. So here you have Maria younger, and that's a 3 months old picture. So that's basically her today with my house in the background. And me today. She's out traveling, enjoying the world. Today she's in Thailand. Okay, so why was MariaDB created? When Oracle announced that they will buy Sun, and they made it clear that the main reason they wanted to buy Sun was to get the hands on MySQL, I didn't want the project that I spent more than 20 years of my life on just to disappear. I also wanted to ensure that all the good people that has helped me create MySQL would have a workplace for life. And I also felt very bad about open source. It would be a very bad precedence for open source if a project like MySQL could be killed. And Oracle has today, up to today, not given a single firm promise that they will keep MySQL alive. They can terminate any day. So we created MariaDB and we are continuing with that. I also wanted to ensure that what happened to MySQL, which basically is now an open core product, not open source, would never happen to MariaDB. So I created the MariaDB Foundation, who owns the repository of MariaDB and the MariaDB server trademark, which also means that even if MariaDB Corporation would disappear or be bought by some entity who would just want to kill the product, they couldn't. The source repository will always be open. So that kind of is probably the biggest difference with MySQL, and I should have done that with MySQL, but I didn't think about that. Very few open source project thinks about that. And we have lots of core members who are paying membership fees, and this allows the foundation to be alive. We also have the MariaDB Corporation who gives services on the project. We are now close to 200 people. We have all the best people who left MySQL is working in the corporation. But the good thing is that we have lots of developers outside. So in GitHub we have close to 200 people who has done pull request or committed code to MariaDB. So we are a true open source project. We are using an open source development model like Linux. Anybody can get, who is good enough, can get commit access. All plans we do are available on the MariaDB website, and we get all the benefits of the open source community by working with it. So the foundation employing 2 people who just works on ensuring that all pull requests are reviewed, giving comments and getting in. So that's a big difference with MariaDB. With most of the open source projects that we have dedicated people working with the community. And we are expanding the developers in the foundation. I believe in easy upgrades because I'm lazy. And for anybody who has the frustration of doing a Linux upgrade and then something stops working, knows how frustrating that can be. So with MariaDB, you can take a MySQL table created in 1981 with the original project of MySQL and get it to work with almost no effort at all in MariaDB today. I believe that upgrade should be like that. It's actually easier to upgrade from MySQL to MariaDB than from between 2 MySQL versions. We don't remove features. And if you look at MySQL 8.0, they have removed lots of features. So going to MySQL 8.0, it's basically a new database. You have to test everything because lots of things have stopped working. So I believe keep things compatible, add new things, but don't destroy it for people. Upgrades should be easy. A couple of slides about what if you go from. So how many MySQL users do we have here? Okay, that's less than usual. And MariaDB users. And that's some save hands there. So we have lots of features, and actually we have lots of enterprise features. With enterprise, I mean that are similar to that you find in Oracle. The constraints, sequences, rows. Yes or no? I'm actively still developing code. So check constraints and sequences and default for expression, dynamic columns. I did all of those. So I'm kind of lucky that even if I'm part of a company and also part of a foundation, I can spend 50% of my time developing. And that I recommend anybody who's creating a company that, and you have some developing skill, stay where you are good and try to find good people who can do the dirty stuff. We have added PL/SQL. I have more about that later. For those who has ever had a problem with alter table, that's partly gone in 10.3, almost completely gone in 10.4. So this is just a quick overview of that we do releases every year with lots of features, and MySQL does it every second year. I think Postgres also does every year, so we are kind of similar to them. Here you see a quick overview of the features that we added in MariaDB and when we added those. And So we are trying to keep things compatible with my MySQL, and we are the 10.3 is very compatible with 5.7. Most people can just upgrade without any issues. So in 10.1 we added a Columnstore. I will have more about that later. And 10.2 we added lots of functions that was in Postgres, as that Postgres said that we are more advanced than MySQL and MariaDB. Today, I would say that if you forget storage engines, we are about in pair with Postgres, but the storage engines and what we can do with those, I would say, put us in front of Postgres. So I would say that today we are the most advanced open source database that exists. Of course, Postgres people will say something different, but now to the main talk. So sequences, I don't know how many has like those. Personally, I like the auto increment. It's so easy. But with 10.3, I was working with DBS of helping them moving their big Oracle applications to MariaDB. So they wanted us to add a lot of features to make this transition easier. The sequence was one of the things that they required. So we took everything that Oracle, Postgres, SQL Server supports and added functionality for those. So you can create a sequence, but it's a kind of nice that it's also a table, so you can also query to see the sequence. So that was kind of a benefit for the way we did it. We have all the commands that you expect from the standard. I was really surprised to learn that last while, to see what actually was the sequence number that you got is not part of the standard. Setval is not either, so we basically support both the logical version and also something that is similar to what Postgres is doing, because Postgres kind of got it right, the standard didn't. We added intersect and except, which are useful for finding differences and similarities between unions. And we still have a problem with braces that we already have fixed in 10.4. We have a row data type, which makes programming with store procedures much easier. So you can use a variable as you would use a table. You can do a type of something to see that basically these are Oracle features that we added to standard MariaDB. So now we basically have two versions or two parsers of this syntax in MariaDB, and I will come to that later. So we have no parameters for cursors. And so there's some things that goes against the SQL standard. My belief is that database should be a practical database. If you can add something without breaking things, we do it. The problem with Oracle syntax is that with PL/SQL, they are doing things that breaks the syntax. And so we added SQL mode Oracle for if you want to run exactly like Oracle. So then you get an extended syntax that is not compatible with ANSI. But the nice thing, if you create a store procedure and you store it, we store the mode together with the store procedure, so you can execute it in either mode. This makes it really, really easy to move an application from Oracle to MariaDB. So this was a feature, I don't remember from whom it was, but basically they wanted to have that to ensure that some operations should be instant. For example, I think in Facebook they have a rule that no query should ever take more than half a second. So by using no wait and no wait, they can ensure that they don't have to wait for the database. Of course, we have options to say that never run a query. If a query takes more than this amount of time, it will automatically break. But this wanted to just to see that based on the logs. We had a couple of problems with both the delete and update, that you couldn't use the same table twice in a query. In 10.3 we fixed that both for for delete and update. We also added order by for multi-table updates. And by the way, if you have any questions about any of the slides, it's easier if you ask the questions while the slide is on than afterwards. Of course, I'm happy to take questions afterwards too. So we added instant add column for InnoDB. So there's some limitations. The table has to be, the new column has to be last, and you have to use you can't use compressed rows. And in 10.4 we will have lots more things that are instant. Looking at how people using NoSQL and dynamic, where they're using JSON for storing things. One of the biggest reasons is that if you have a big table, adding a column takes a long time, which can cause problems. Most of the operations in MariaDB are online, so you can change those, and the things happens in the background, so you don't see that happening. But that still takes processing time from the computer. By having instant operations, we try to avoid those. So we have no compressed columns. So you just add compressed after the type, and it works for varchars and blobs. And there were patches from Alibaba and Tencent and even from Parkona for doing this. We looked at all of those in the foundation and decided that all of those have some good features, but then Sergei Wojtovich worked with me, and we took something that took the best of all of those and gives you the nice benefit that when you move things internally, we don't need to decompress. So it's faster than any other solutions. And we also got patches from Alibaba and Tencent games for that. So the new Oracle compatible parser, it's not perfect. We only have worked on this for 1 year. But DBS, which is one of the biggest banks in Asia, was able to take some of the biggest applications and move them unchanged to MariaDB, and things just worked. So it's pretty stable. So we are the only open source database to support PL/SQL. So how many are using Oracle here? Okay, two, three. So it's really easy to move to MariaDB. Of course, you need to test, but you can save a lot of money by moving that. And we have lots and lots of banks who are contacting us and asking them, can we help them moving their applications to MariaDB. So this is probably the biggest feature in 10.3 from the company's point of view. We also have packages. Packages is that if you have a set of store procedures, you can create them and store them in a package so that you don't get name conflicts with something else. So different packages can have store procedures with the same name. So this is an Oracle feature. So we also added invisible columns, and this is needed for some other features that we have. So an invisible column is something that when you create it, you just add invisible after it, and it doesn't show up in select star, or you don't have to specify it if you do insert without column names. So if you ever had an application that you select star and you want to add a column without breaking it, invisible columns add that possibility. So then we have three different invisible layers, where the last one is used for versioning. I will come to that later. Actually, this is the versioning. So how many knows about the system versioning? Okay, Oracle guys should know that. So this is a paid-for feature that is not of standard in Oracle, but we have that in MariaDB. So if you have one table and you want to make it system versioning, you should just do alter table with system versioning. After that, everything is stored in tables. All the leads are stored there. It looks like a normal table, but when you want to look at how things are in the past, you can just say as employee, for system time, and then a timestamp. So this query takes shows you the difference in salaries for one person, John, between now and 2016. So you can go back any time in the past and look at how the database looked back then. So another uses for this is to, assuming that you have an audit log and somebody did a data intrusion of 1st of January 2016. Then in 2017 you notice that, hey, our password are out on the net, we lost something, so what happened? You can go back, look in your audit log, find the queries that this hacker, or actually cracker, used, and then you can repeat those by just adding as of the time when he was in there to see exactly which record he accessed, which I think is a really, really cool feature. Of course, this will take a lot of space because the leads will be transferred internal to an update. Update will be an insert. So it takes a lot of space, but still, if you want to have perfect tracking, that's what you have to pay for. And with the MariaDB architecture of having that the master and slave can have different storage engines and different options, it's very easy to just add a slave, add system versioning for the slave, and then you have the whole history there without affecting your master. I spent also some time to reduce memory in 10.3 because we had some issues with how Monjog, a monitoring tool, uses queries. So basically they used, if you had 100,000 of tables, they used a couple of gigs per query. I reduced it to 93% to get rid of that issue. So one of the nice benefits of MariaDB is the storage engine interface that allows us to do more than any other database. If you look at the MySQL, they believe that you only need InnoDB, everything should be there. So they're basically removing a lot of the features in the storage engine interface and pushing those down to MySQL. While I believe that sooner or later, when you have a problem in your application with performance, everything goes to how you store your data. And having different methods to store your data allows you to solve different kind of problems. So Area was a storage engine originally created to replace InnoDB. I worked on that before Sun and at Sun, but when Oracle bought Sun and MySQL, we didn't need InnoDB replacement anymore. But still it has some nice benefits over MyISAM. So you can look at Area as the new MyISAM. But it has a nice what's the word? Nice behavior is that you can create table anywhere and copy it to somewhere else. So at Stanford University, they take photos of the star, and they have about 10 to 100 petabytes a year. And all of that they store in MyISAM with lots of indexes. And they usually have more than 4 gigabytes of rows in one table. But they can create that in one machine and then just copy it to other machines. So you can use lots of machines to create the tables, and then you just can use them anywhere. So that's why still MyISAM and Area are relevant. The Connect engine, I have a couple of slides about that. I don't have anything about the sequence and classics, but I will come to those. So the Connect engine is, I think this is one good example that of the benefits of working from home. It's created and maintained by Oliver Bertrand. He's more than 80. still working on it, still giving patches, still fixing bugs. So the nice thing of being a programmer from home, you can work forever. But it's really amazing what you can do with it, because you can access lots of different storage formats. You can even read MongoDB tables directly. And it also supports ODBC and GDBC, which allows you to do a query where you take data from Oracle, Postgres, MySQL, and MariaDB in the same query, which is kind of nice. It also allows you to easily move your data from Oracle or Postgres to MariaDB. You just do create select, new table, select from Oracle table under the computer, and then you have a table. We also have Columnstore, which is a all-up engine for analytics. It allows you to do really advanced queries over lots of data, petabytes of data. It's kind of a Hadoop with one SQL interface. And it compresses things so they get much smaller. And it looks a little bit like this. So you have lots of MariaDB front ends. You can have more than one front end to the data, which means that you can scale things on the data side by adding more nodes. You can scale things more on the SQL processing side by adding more front ends. And this is fully open source. Currently, it's only available from MariaDB.org because it's a different binary. Because even if you have this storage engine architecture, the old code of Columnstore was intertwined with the rest of the server like this, where the storage engine is pluggable, so you should be able to take it in and out. So in 10.4, they will make it a true storage engine, so that we only have one binary, and then it will also be in all distributions. Until 10.4, you can only get it on MariaDB.com. Still, it's open source, and we are not trying to do anything strange. We also have the Spider storage engine, which is also a distributed engine, and it uses MariaDB partitionings to distribute data. There's some users who use it really heavily. I think the biggest one in Tencent Games, where they have some 10,000 servers with some 10,000 Spider nodes. So when Tencent Games, which is one of the biggest game companies, maybe it's the biggest game company in China, when they make a new game, they tell the developer, here you have your Spider setup, your Spider nodes, just use it. So it looks a little bit like this, that you have the storage engine interface, under the partitioning, you have Spider, and then you have normal MariaDB servers on the nodes. And then you configure Spider to use those. So you can use any storage engine on the node for the data. But we also have MyRocks. How many have heard about MyRocks? Okay, that's basically the MariaDB users. So Facebook has the problem that they have some 10,000, I don't know how many, but say 10,000 different machines supporting Facebook. And it takes lots of efforts to manage that many machines. By using MyRocks, they can get it down to 2,000 machines, which is much more efficient and easier to manage. So MyRocks is highly compressible. The development is driven by Facebook, but we have one person at MariaDB Corporation who also works full-time on MyRocks. So it allows you to do basically in a DB replacement when your data size is started to get critical. And it's for smaller tables, in a DB is faster. For really big tables, MyRocks is faster. So this is a couple of slides for setting up things for the future. So MariaDB has the most flexible replication of any database I ever heard of. You can have lots of different setups, and this is probably one of the most common one. So this gives us infinite read scale. We also have another version when using MaxScale proxy developed by MariaDB Corporation, where you can have configured as a bin log server, so it takes just reads all the bin logs and then gives it to the slaves. This means that there's much less work for the master. And Booking.com is the one who come up with the idea and sponsored the development of that, and they're using it internally. By the way, with MyRocks, Facebook has changed all DB tables of the main servers to use MyRocks, so it's very stable today. Okay, so that was about 10.3. So, and 10.3 was released 5 months ago, so now we are working on 10.4. So many of these things that are there, people actively working on. So we are trying to put much more effort on security. MariaDB has really good security, also allows you to do even more, but still there are things missing, so we are working on those. One of the things that I personally like really much is socket authentication, and we will have that as default. On Linux, this means that we don't need to generate the password anymore that you have to know or find out when we install a server. We just use your user. So when you install MariaDB in the future, the root can access that without the password. And then you can decide that do you want to have privileges checked depending on who you are in the Linux system, or you can also, of course, use the MariaDB own users to do that. But this allows installations to be so much easier. I hate the way that Oracle with MySQL did it really hard to install and use MySQL automatically, because you have to find the password that you can't read normally. They're just bad system, and this solves it. So Debian is already using it, and in 10.4 we will make it default for everyone. The problem why we couldn't make it default for everyone from the start was that if we would have made it default, that would mean that all new installation upgrades would have failed. So what we will do is that you can have, for one user, you can have two authentications. So if the socket authentication failed, we can go to the normal one, so that upgrades will just work. With compatibility with Oracle, we have still some features that we want to add. Connect by, which is kind of syntax change for what we already have, so we are working for that one. We have people who ask us about, can't we do the same thing with SQL Server that we did for Oracle? So far, nobody has wanted to pay for that or donate code, but I still hope that we will get that in 10.4 or later. We fixed the issue with brackets. I personally changed all the MySQL tables in the the MySQL tables in the MySQL directory system tables to use area, so there are no crash safe. And one of my projects for 10.4 is to make DDL atomic. In other words, to ensure that FRM and the table can never get out of sync. So I'm working on that. I'm actually working on that just now. We also have lots of ideas for doing much more with performance. And when you have a customer like DBS that has rows with billions, tables with billions of rows, you kind of get into new problems that you haven't thought about before. So they regularly delete 10 million rows from a table. So they work over a month, add things, and then delete. The problem with this one, when you have 10 million tables that you want to delete of 100 million, that query takes 1 hour. And then when you run it then on the slave, it will also take 1 hour, the slave. But this means that the slave will be 1 hour after the master, which is not a good thing. So by adding an option to do auto commit every 1,000 rows, you can basically have this, that the master and the slave will always be in sync because they can run in parallel. So that's something that I probably have to do this year too. I'm trying to take all the interesting tasks for myself. even if we are some 30 people working on it. But still, it's nice to be working with the customer and be able to tell the customer, I will do this personally. So with InnoDB, so I think all of this already works now in the 10.4 repository. So you can drop a column, you can add a column anywhere, you can change the position of columns, you can do collation and character sense, except for indexes, because then we need to do index rebuild. The index rebuild is also done that's done in the background, so it doesn't influence you. But everything else is instant, yeah, doesn't take any time. And this was, I think it was a couple of months of work to get this done. So in MariaDB Corporation, we have now the best InnoDB developers that ever existed. Okay, except Heikki, but Heikki doesn't work anymore. But that exists now. So that's why we are in the front of making InnoDB better. With Spider, we had Spider since 10.1, I think. But with 10.3, I worked together with Kentoku to get all his patches in and actually review them. So I spent 1 month reviewing patches and cleaning up Spider, and at least the interface. So there's still some more work to be done on Spider, but at least it's actively developed. We will have Columnstore integrated, so it will be a standard part of the server. There's still some work that we need to do internally for getting that done. And Galera. Galera is kind of like MySQL group replication, just done 4 or 5 years earlier, very stable, and it still has some issues when you have really long transactions. So we had hoped to get Galera 4 into 10.3, but the Galera guys were not ready, so we get that into 10.4. But it will have a lot of things to enhance spatial performance in 10.4. We're also working with Rowlocks continuously with Facebook. I'm working on adding support for 3DX points persistent memory into MariaDB, so that even if you have, assuming that you have lots of tables on hard disks or SSDs, but you still have a little bit of persistent memory. So what I'm doing is a library that will put the head of all append-only files first written in the persistent memory, which where the nice thing with persistent memory is that commits are basically instant. On an SSD, when you do a commit, even if SSDs are very fast, you have to write 1 meg or more for each commit, even if you just write 10 bytes as part of the transactions, because the way that SSDs are designed. So I think that this one can get patch will, without just adding a little bit of persistent memory, you can get your database 30% or 50% faster. So that would be a nice addition. Rolling features, things that we don't yet know if they will happen. Actually, histograms is in the works, so that should happen. But we still have lots of plans of what's to do, and this is what the optimizer team is working on. We have lots of people who want to have foreign key support for storage engines. So we have already started to prepare tasks for doing part of those in 10.4, but then fully in 10.5. And so we had to do some redesign. Re-entrant items is something, a legacy. When I created MySQL on top of my old product in 94, you didn't have some multi-core in the way that you have today. So I did something that should be as fast as possible for one query. I never thought about splitting one query over many threads to get more parallel processing. MySQL and MariaDB was always designed to be very fast in handling thousands of connections at the same time. It was never designed to be able to just have one user run one query as fast as possible. We can do that today with Columnstore, because Columnstore runs things on different nodes. We can't do that in the server, and we need to fix that. So this is what is coming in 10.4. We at MariaDB Corporation just bought a company called Clustrix, which has a distributed storage engine. And so you can connect many MariaDB servers. So this looks a little bit like both Columnstore and Spider. Actually, Spider can't have two servers connecting it, but Columnstore. But the thing is that this is optimized for transactions, and Clustrix can work together with the nodes, so they can do. If the one worker node doesn't have the data, it can ask another node. They can even do join together. So this is also a write scale engine. If you have 2 nodes and you add to 4, you get double the write speed, and that is you can continue that forever as much hardware. So this is the first engine in MariaDB and MySQL history that gives you perfect write scaling. So and this is the main missing piece that exists in the MySQL ecosystem. The NoSQL they can do also read scaling. They can do write scaling. Okay, they can do write scaling in some sense, but not in the way that this can do, because they can also the nodes also communicate with each other. So reason to switch to MariaDB today, especially from MySQL. There's no reason to use MySQL for anything. We can do everything and more. And we also have guaranteed open source, and you can participate with MariaDB development, which is not possible in any similar way with Oracle. And you can get MariaDB everywhere. We are on all the distributions, on all the cloud. I didn't have time to add Alibaba Cloud to the slide. They just announced 1 month ago that MariaDB is also on Alibaba Cloud. And the interesting thing is that most of the distribution doesn't support MySQL anymore. They have just pulled out MySQL, replaced it with MariaDB. So we are definitely the future. So that's it in time.
Thank you. Questions?
Does a raw data type allows to return a table, like things like to generate
you can just do insert into the table and then the raw data type.
Right, but what if I want some complex function that will generate some users with some percentile of distribution data and etc.?
It's not really designed for that. It's designed that you can easily map a row to a variable and use it more conveniently.
Right.
And without actually also without accessing the row in many statements. It's kind of nice that you can copy the row with everything in the row to one variable, and then you can use the variable everywhere without having to access the row over and over again.
Okay.
In statements.
I thought that this feature also will allow maybe in future have some function like in Postgres, then you can select from a function. And
so we don't have table functions. Table functions we have started designing those. 10.5 we definitely have a JSON table like MySQL, probably 10.4 also. But when we have that one, then we can provide table functions for a lot of other things, and then you can make a table function of a row type.
Thank you.
You have OpenShift logo. Could you share more? I know you have a Helm chart for OpenShift for Kubernetes, but what is in your roadmap about OpenShift?
So I'm working on the server itself, and I haven't worked on the different stacks, so that's not my area expertise. Everything in the server and most of the storage engines, I'm not working in a DB, but so that one I can't answer. Sorry.
Thank you. Probably one question from me. Actually, Could you please elaborate a little bit more how storage class memory like the TIDX point change the database designs? Yeah.
So TDX point is persistent memory, and which means that when your computer goes down, everything stays. So there's two designs for working with persistent memory, or two main ones. Try to create a database where you store everything in persistent memory, and then you don't have to do sync to disk or anything. You know, just things crash, it will be there. The problem with that is that if you get a crash, even if everything is memory is there, you don't know where you were in memory and which locks you have. So you start off with a new CPU, a new thread, and then you just see your memory. So that means that every single operation you have to do, you have to be logged, and you have to be able to repeat the logging of that. All mutexes that are in persistent memory, you have to take care of that. You have to unlock those to get those again. So even if persistent memory promise you a lot, I don't think it's makes sense to try to have everything in persistent memory and just use the whole memory for something that is a database, because the crashing is a problem and managing it. And also persistent memory, even if it's 10 times faster than SSDs, it's still 10 times slower than main memory. Intel has some plans of creating memory chips where they have the normal memory, then they have persistent memory on top. Yeah. So, and then if you get a crash, they will copy the memory to persistent memory and kind of get memory speed with persistent memory. But this managing of things that you can't handle or you have to record makes things much harder. So the other option is to use it as a file system, but then you have the problem that you have to copy it back and forth. Still, the copying is fast, and but that still allows you to do a couple of things, which I really like. If everything in memory, and it's really hard to replicate or move from one computer to another one, because you have to copy a memory structure and everything else, where things can change everywhere. I personally like the fact that things are files and you can just copy them from one computer from different generations and things just work. So, but we still want to have that done things faster, and that's why I come up with the idea of this interface for append logs, because most of the problem with writes in a database is that you have to write to a log and sync it, and the sync is the critical point. If you could get the sync time down to 0, then the biggest problem that exists with databases would disappear. And having a cache in front of the normal data, and you had a cache in persistent memory where the sync is close to 0. You will solve that problem. So what I'm working on, already have a design, it's in MariaDB Jira, is that you can trivially take any file and use an API and get that automatically pre-logged in persistent memory, and then you have background threads who updates it. So you only have to change very few things in your application, any application, including MariaDB, and be able to use this library. So that's what I'm trying to do. So when the library is ready, I expect I can get the speed benefit of persistent memory to MariaDB within 1 or 2 days of work. Postgres should also be able to use the library, and anybody else. The thing is that nobody has done a really good library that is useful for everyone, where different processes can share the global persistent memory that exists on the machine. And that's what I'm doing.
Okay. Thank you. Next question.
Hi, and thank you for the presentation. Question about vulnerability. And as we all know, there was a vulnerability for CPU introduced at the beginning of this year. And the question is, did they change the direction by bringing new features for MariaDB somehow, or it's kind of it's not a problem in general?
That's more a kernel problem, that particular one. But what we have added in MariaDB is that you have an option to, within a DB, to have everything encrypted on disk. So that's kind of, I think that is even more important than the CPU vulnerability. So we taken, and that's also why we have security as one of the themes in 10.4. So getting the people, where the public gets more aware of security, we are there also and ensuring that we are doing what they expect from us. But the CPU, there's not much we can do in the database regarding that. We don't know. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
But security is important. We have a team who, as soon as we get the security issue reported, we work on it and release it in the next release. We don't do like some of the commercial entities do quarterly releases of securities. We do like you do in open source. You fix it immediately, and when it's fixed, we inform the public that we need to upgrade, and later we inform that what is the problem is.
Thank you. So that's the next question.
Hello, Monty Widenius, thank you for the great talk. Okay. So you said that you don't work on the stacks, different stacks for MariaDB.
I personally don't work. We have people in the company who does that.
Yeah. But my question more on is there some work being done to bring MariaDB to different clouds, to for instance Google Cloud Platform that doesn't have support for MariaDB. And,
actually, Google Clouds, some of their services are using MariaDB. So they did announce that some time ago.
They don't announce that they have MariaDB support for Cloud SQL now, and Amazon actually has 10.2 version now. And what work is being done in Foundation or in corporation to bring the latest version to the cloud?
So personally, I'm working a lot with Alibaba and MySQL and getting MariaDB over there to the Alibaba cloud. And they're using 10.3, and I have a good relation with them personally. With Amazon really don't want to talk with open source people. I think we have an offering of our own repository on Amazon where we have 10.3, but the Amazon ones is that they manage themselves is 10.2. Yeah. So with Microsoft, we are pushing them to use 10.3. So Microsoft, those who are in the foundation, we can actually influence, and we have Microsoft and Alibaba in the foundation. Yeah. So the foundation is working with them, but only with those who want to work with us. We can't force them.
Thank you.
Thank you. We mentioned the encryption on REST. Do you have any integration with external key management system like?
So we support two. We so much support the Amazon one, and then we have our own. We have a partner, Eperi, who has their own, and we support that one. Google has their own, but we don't have the code for that. But the thing is that the key management system is basically one plugin, and we have an example. It's really easy for anybody to add their own. So currently we have only got customers who wanted to add us to add Amazon. The default one that is included is a file-based one. So if you put your key on a USB stick, then you are safe. That we support. But it's one file that you have to change.
Thank you. The next question.
Do you have any use on area support for Rowlocks? Because it's announced as in plans for a long time.
Yeah, we do have MVCC, so and MVCC provides implicit Rowlocks. So the original plan with area was to replace InnoDB, and we were about 3-4 months from 5 people working on it to get it to be in par with the functionality, not the speed, but performance you still need more. but we still were close to doing that. But that was when Oracle announced that they will buy MySQL through Sun, and then we put all our efforts just to fork in MySQL and created that. So that effort kind of left. So the state of areas now it's crash safe. You can have inserts and selects running concurrently, but deletes and updates they lock. And
it will be nice to have some storage engine that will not have this MVCC overhead, like just provide a raw speed for reading, and at least, well, MySQL was a good thing for many workloads. The only thing that is bad that you should, for example, if you're updating counter inside user for visits, you should lock whole table, and it will be really nice to have ability.
Yeah, but the overhead of MVCC is actually very little. If you have no lock, there's no overhead. I will believe that in most cases MVCC is faster than Rowlocks.
The thing that it still has overhead for memory. For small tables, it will add some big transaction pointer.
Yeah, you lose in InnoDB, you lose 8 bytes per row. Yes.
Yes.
That's the cost.
And also, it's more fragmented because we should store several rows.
No, the rows are stored in the underlog. It's not stored in the table, so they don't take space.
Yes, kind of. And for big transactions, we need such things like commit every 1,000.
Yeah, but the problem is, but that has nothing to do with the problem is that when writing a transaction to the binary log, we write the whole transaction, and so we wait until these 10 million rows are updated or deleted, and then we write, and so that means that then we have to transfer 50 gig to the slave. So the transfer is the problem. This has nothing to do with MVCC per se. Look at Sybase. One of the reasons Sybase failed was that they have first page lock. They tried to go to Rowlocks. Oracle killed them just because of MVCC. MVCC seems to be the standard everywhere. Postgres also have that. I don't know any modern database that uses Rowlocks. Okay, no, some of the NoSQL does, but the problem is that as soon as anybody can destroy everything for you by just updating one row and then all application blocks, and that was the biggest criticism for MySQL. So I don't really see. I mean, anybody can add support for Rowlocks to area or MySQL. That wouldn't be so hard. And if the patch is nice and you can have it optional, we would accept it. But so far, during 20 years, 30 years, nobody has wanted to do that.
Thank you. The next question from here.
Thank you for the talk. I noticed a phrase vertical partitioning in one of your slides. Could you please elaborate a little what's this? Is there some kind of common use cases with the column storage?
No, this is only for spiders. It's basically to combine that you get a row from many tables. So a row would be stored in many tables, but then combined and seen as one. And you store one part of the row on different nodes. And Kentoku has a good description of that on his Spider web pages. So if you go to search for vertical partitioning and Spider, you will find exactly how it's done. But personally, I see that as a feature that is useful for, maybe very useful for a few, but only a few. So I don't see that as a mainstream feature. It may be important for you, but so look it up.
Thank you. So what is, I think that we finish now. What is the best question you got? We have prices as a $MC t-shirt and IT coffee and beans. What is the best one? You select.
Actually, I think that security is one of the most important thing for everyone. So security questions probably is the most relevant one. The other one was a little bit internal.
Okay. thank you very much for your talk.
Okay.
And I will get press for you and the next one.